Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Several years ago, I founded the Oil and National Security Caucus, and one of the reasons I have an open mind about all of this is that I think that we cannot really be free with our policies as long as we rely on foreign oil. And so anything that can ramp up production of domestic oil domestic resources for energy is something that I think we should look at, albeit there are some safety concerns, there are some environmental concerns, but I think it's something that we need to look at. So I've been focused on North American energy independence, and the increase in natural gas supplies obviously are a boon to this possibility. Can someone speak? I want to piggyback on the exporting of LNG. Will we hurt our long-term energy security? Can someone speak to the long-term impacts of exporting LNG? And I know there's a rush to say that we should export it, but you know, I'm wondering that should we not try to keep more for domestic purposes?
I think that the one thing you need to bear in mind, because of course markets change, and I know there's a concern. First, people are telling us we don't have enough resource, and then suddenly we have this hugely abundant supply. I think the point is that nothing's irreversible. So we can allow LNG exports. They can bring a benefit to our trade balance and to our international stature. And if some later date, 30 years from now or 20 years from now, we find that that policy no longer fits, we might have different circumstances, we can revisit it. I don't see that it's necessarily going to be a threat to our energy security. There's a lot of opinion about how much resource we have. I do believe that the resource is so extensive that we probably could export a substantial amount from several terminals and have it actually not affect prices all that much, except maybe occasionally seasonally. And I think that one of the impacts, I mean, the reason that a Japan or an India or a South Korea are lining up to buy these exports is because they actually see a price advantage. In other words, they're paying very high price oil-linked prices for natural gas. If they could at least have our market integrated, we have what we call gas-on-gas pricing, then they could move the market to a more competitive footing where natural gas prices would trade based on natural gas prices and not based on instability in the Middle East. There's great advantages to having all the oil globally in the system move to natural gas. Japan is using burning crude oil and oil for both electricity, and also China uses oil in their petrochemical industry just for both environmental reasons and for strategic reasons. We would want to see the world moving more away from oil in those industries, and even maybe in transportation, to natural gas, because it's so much more plentiful and so less controlled by artificial forces like Russia or OPEC. So I think that it's important at this time when we have the luxury of having abundance to make a statement as the United States that we favor free trade. We're going to honor our free trade agreements. We export natural gas to Mexico. I don't think we can turn around and tell South Korea that we also have a free trade agreement with, that somehow we're not going to provide them with the same opportunities. So I think that we really have to look at the balance of our strategic and foreign policy and understand that at least in the immediate term, chances are these exports are not going to affect domestic consumers, right? And you know, again, I want to emphasize, this is sort of a topic for another time. When we export refined products in this country, or we're going to export LNG, the way to ensure that consumers are not harmed in a case where we have a sudden seasonal change in temperature, or we have a sudden refinery accident and there's a disruption. The way to do that is to ensure that we have minimum inventory standards for companies operating in this country, which they have in Europe and they have in Asia. We can say that you have to hold a certain number of days of your customer supply. And the reason we have volatile prices in this country is that we don't do that, even though if we did, we would not have to worry about the impact on consumer prices of being part of the global market.
Well, thank you. I had another question, but I guess all my time is used. I just want to welcome back our colleagues, Mr. Dorgan, Mr. Johnston. Good to see both of you, and thank you all.